Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone. At Kroger, an annual Boost membership just got even better. Now you can choose from Disney Plus with ads, Hulu with ads, or ESPN Plus on us when you sign up. Plus, enjoy unlimited free delivery, double fuel points, exclusive offers, and free items. Sign up for a Boost membership today. It's an easier way to save, including new streaming options to relax with while we deliver your groceries. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Live at lunch.
You are looking live.
Live at lunch. Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
What the hell's going on out here?
Now, here's Jimmy Ott.
Good morning and welcome to the Thursday edition of Live at Lunch. I'm Charles Hannegriff along with Max Gotro. Jordan Kinchin's back in the studio. Jimmy Ott is not with us today. We start the show today with an extremely heavy heart. As many of, not all of you know by now, a terror attack in New Orleans claimed the life of 15 people on New Year's morning near the corner of Bourbon Street and Canal Street. Among those that were killed was Kareem Badawi, a graduate from Episcopal High School in 2024. Among those injured was another member of the class of 24, Parker Vadrine, who was critically injured and remains hospitalized in New Orleans. Also among the dead, Princeton football and St. Thomas More alum Tiger Besh, whose brothers Blaine and Brett both played at LSU, and his uncles Blaine and Brett played at LSU, and whose brother Jack also played at LSU before finishing up his career at TCU. Among those dead also Reggie Hunter, a 37-year-old father of two from Baton Rouge. Hunter Hubert Gotro, no relation to Max, but who was a graduate of Archbishop Shaw in Marrero, who was 21 years old. Nakira Dato, an 18-year-old from Mississippi, also among the dead. So those of you that listen to the show know that Jimmy Ott's son, Ethan, was a graduate of Episcopal and was down in New Orleans with his friends celebrating New Year's. Ethan is okay. He narrowly escaped the terror attack. He was not there when this happened by a very short period of time. However, Kareem Bawadi was Ethan's very close personal friend and was his college roommate at Alabama. Our deepest sympathies go out to the Badawi family, to the Besh family, to those that lost loved ones, these young people that were innocent and were taken from us. It's the hardest thing that you can imagine for a parent or a loved one to have to deal with. And our thoughts are with all of these people today. For us here personally, obviously, I did not know Kareem, but obviously I knew Ethan very well. And this is somebody that was very, very close to him. And when you get this news that these things have happened, it's a terrifying and sobering thing to have to face. For Tiger Besh, who I did not know, but I worked with his uncle Blaine. He was a member of our Guarantee family for many years, and obviously we know him very well too. And we followed all of the careers of all the Beshes. Very obviously linked to LSU. We're horrified. We are. I find it very hard to to express the proper words, and I'm somebody who is supposed to talk for a living, but I find it very hard to find the words that will provide any kind of comfort at all today for these families and what they're going through, other than to say that we're praying for them, and it's not lip service. For those Episcopal alumni, obviously it sits very close to home here in this community. Their head of school, Carrie Stakely, and head chaplain Patrick Edwards issued a statement yesterday. There's an evening prayer service planned for 6 o'clock in the school chapel tonight. There'll be counselors and chaplains available there. The University of Alabama, where Kareem and Ethan are both students, also issued a statement offering all of their support in the wake of this. The Sugar Bowl was postponed yesterday. They'll play the game at 3 o'clock this afternoon as the investigation continues. Look, we do what we do here. We do a what is usually a very lighthearted sports show. We debate about sports, we argue about sports, we take positions, but mostly what we provide here is an outlet. This is not life or death what we do. It's in the grand scheme of things, it's entertainment, and we offer you an outlet. So if today we can offer you an outlet from anything, we're happy to do that. If you decide today that sports just isn't important, we understand that as well. Unfortunately, we've had some experience in dealing with shows after tragedy. There'll be a lot more on this. Obviously, our thoughts are with all of these families today. And again, it's just tough. It's extremely tough. But like I said, we've got a little bit of experience in dealing with the shows after tragedy. So this is what we do. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back. We're going to start the show. We're going to talk about all the things that happened on the New Year's holiday, all the games and things like that, and we'll do the show. But know for sure that our minds and our deepest sympathies are with these families today, as both Baton Rouge and New Orleans communities and everywhere else that this has reached today. Very, very somber today. We'll take a break. We'll come back and we'll start the show. 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch. Lunch with Ott and Hanny from Jolie Pearl downtown, facing Town Square on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Show's available on demand, 1045ESPN.com, also the new LouisianaSports.net. It's a new year. I can quit calling it the new LouisianaSports.net, right? It's now the LouisianaSports.net website. You can get our live broadcasts there. We will be doing another Hannycast podcast. We will break down the film of Baylor and LSU next week. That'll return next Monday night. Tigers win on New Year's Eve, 44-31. We did not do, because of other obligations, a flagship post game, so I hadn't had a chance to really talk about this yet. But LSU's win, which makes them in the season at 9-4, was significant. Max, first of all, good to see you here. Thank you for coming in. Thursday's usually your day off, but appreciate that. If you had told me before the game, and full disclosure here, I picked Baylor. In a close game because I thought that they were more intact than LSU. LSU had 6 players, starters, out of this game. Their offensive line was completely reworked, and Baylor finished the season on a 6-game winning streak. They were playing well. Picking Baylor was mostly about the circumstances around the game, how the lineups had meshed out. So I went into this game looking for a glimpse at the future, not so much from Garrett Nussmeier, because I got a pretty good idea what he can do, but more so from the reworked offensive line without C.J. Daniels and Kyron Lacey and Mason Taylor, 3 of their 4 leading receivers who would pick up the slack there, what they would look like defensively. And after the game, I found myself really encouraged, not only by what I had saw, but by the deep dive we did. We did an extra long pregame show. We did a dive into the 2025 roster, and it's easy to get caught up, at least it was for me, until I sat down Sunday night and I said, let me put this roster together and see what it looks like. You start adding transfers, and there was so much news in the transfer portal that it's hard to put it all together, big picture, and say, what do they have here? And when I did it over the weekend on Sunday night, I put together the whole roster. Hang on a second, this looks pretty good. But going into the game, I would have asked about the offensive line. Well, I thought the offensive line performed really well. I didn't see a whole lot of busted assignments. I didn't see, which is something we saw in the middle of the season. We saw, linemen at times running into each other, scraping people off of blocks, unable to get to the next level at times. I didn't see very much of that. Most of the year, not all of the year, but most of the year, the LSU offensive line did a pretty good job of protecting Garrett Nussmeier. It would have been reasonable to be concerned about a pass rush from one guy that hasn't played tackle really at all in Tyree Adams, and the other guy, Miles Frazier, who hasn't really played tackle in 2 years, and an inexperienced interior. Well, that didn't happen either. Nussmeier, for the most part, had time to throw. If you consider Tre'Dez Green a wide receiver, which is what they moved him to midway through the season, LSU really didn't have a tight end. Or at least we're talking about what we thought going into the game. Really didn't have a tight end that you would say is in the Mason Taylor mode. How would that work? Chris Hilton, who we saw have a big game against Oklahoma, but to that point in the season really had not been much of a factor. What type of game would he have out there as one of their main guys? Well, all of that got answered really, really well. Hilton had 4 catches for 113 yards and a touchdown in the first half. I say the first half because I think that's important. I thought Baylor made some adjustments in the second half, maybe to give some more help over the top. That opened some other things up for LSU to exploit, and it's exactly what you want Chris Hilton to do. You want him to be that deep threat that just scares the daylights out of you, so that if you leave somebody on an island somewhere, he's going to be able to outrun them. And not only did we always knew he could run, but I thought he made, on the pass interference penalty, a nice adjustment back to the football. Listen, LSU's bringing in some pretty heavy hitters in the transfer portal at wide receiver. But, Max, if Chris Hilton can play like that, and Tre'Dez Green can play like that, we saw him play tight end. We were saying block a little bit, man. Brian Kelly was talking. He says, man, this guy's been physical in bowl practices. He's been, getting out of here late every day. He's, kind of bruised up. And then Aaron Anderson had another strong game, which has been a very good season for him. If you add what they got coming in to that, that's pretty encouraging.
No doubt. Offensively, I did not expect what we saw with LSU, scoring 44 points. But I thought all the offense, if it came to something, I didn't think LSU was going to win this game, to be honest with you. And I thought they were just going to have to keep up scoring-wise with Baylor. But I thought the offense, if anything, would come from some quick passes, just some design stuff to take the pressure off an offensive line that's not very familiar with each other. Granted, they've had a month to prepare for this, knowing they would be without their tackles. But it was very impressive. And you get Nussmeier averaging about 9 yards an attempt. A lot of that through the air. It wasn't just dink and dunk stuff that got, broken away. The receivers, you mentioned the guys coming in. I mean, I was sort of thinking this was a big game for the current receivers on the roster because there's a lot of reasons to believe that some of these guys could get kind of left behind with what's coming in. Yeah. And just even look at special teams, right? I mean, you had a pretty good unit, at least in returning this year, and you're bringing in a guy who's, 5 kickoff returns for a touchdown. He even made a point to say, hey, look, I'm still relevant here. So
was he on Twitter? Did he say something?
No, I just.
Okay.
You housed a kickoff again. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
It's hard. It's hard to say that he can't be involved in special teams anyway, despite Barry and Brown coming in from Kentucky. So it was a very impressive performance offensively. I think I'll separate it there. I know some people would say there were some optimism in some of the defensive play, but Baylor scored 31 points. They had 500-something total yards. They outgained LSU by about 100 yards, and they also were 1 for 6 on fourth down. So Baylor could have very well been in this game, but offensively, you like what you saw at LSU.
I did. So here's the thing defensively, and I don't want to say, thanks for the memories and go on, but most of that defense is leaving. Your entire the starting defensive front, all those guys were finishing up their eligibility. Now, the young defensive tackles played. I didn't think it was Dominic McKinley's best game. Okay, he played in 23 snaps. He didn't record a stat there, but we did see a little bit of Ahmad Bro, and Gabe Relaford. But the rest of those guys, listen, it wasn't Swenson's best game. It wasn't Jones's best game. It wasn't Shan's best game. It wasn't Paez's best game. We've seen them play better than they did in this game, but those guys are moving on. And again, thanks. They were. Most of those guys were really good players for LSU this year, but they're not going to be on the next defense. You lost Whit Weeks in this game, and the show out of the players that went out, shows you just what kind of a leadership role he has taken on. Greg Penn had 4 tackles in this game. He is moving on. Zy Alexander was your number 1 corner in this game. He's moving on. So you're going to revamp most of this defense. I'll tell you what I was encouraged by. I liked what I saw, obviously, out of Devon Keys. And not just the pick 6, but if you've been watching him in the back half of the season, especially the last month of the season, he's been coming on, been taking more of a role. We saw a little bit of West Weeks in this game, probably more so than we would have seen had his brother not been injured in this game. But that's another piece. I thought Jordan Gilbert, who had, look, let's be real honest, rough year. But I thought he played a little bit better in this game. We saw Ashton Stamps. We saw P.J. Woodland. These are guys that are coming back. But I'm going to go through roster here in just a second. Deshaun Spears was another one we wanted to see play. Wasn't the best, but we –
Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Kroger Delivery has one mission: to deliver the freshest food right to your door. That's why our drivers are pros. Our trucks are refrigerated. And when it comes to low prices, we always deliver. With $20 off your first order of $75 or more, there's no better time to get in on the action. Mission accomplished. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
We got a little bit of action in there, and it's just part of a bigger narrative. So if you had told me before the game that I was going to get this, I'd have been, not only am I fine with that, that's really encouraging with a lot of play. There's still some things that they've got to shore up going into spring. But if you just look at this, and this is what I was talking about with the deep dive, so bear with me for a minute because I'm going to talk through this a little bit. If you come back at quarterback with Garrett Nussmeier and an incoming transfer in Michael Van Buren, who started 8 games for Mississippi State last year, and Colin Hurley, you feel pretty good about your quarterback depth. You essentially have 2 full seasons of starting in the SEC from 2 different players. So you feel, and you got a young player there, so you feel pretty good. If you've got Caden Durham and Jawan Johnson and Caleb Jackson, who are all in this, all on the team, coming back, and you add Harlem Berry and J.T. Lindsey to that, 2 very highly recruited players, and Berry was in bowl practices with them, and by all accounts looked pretty good. That's a pretty decent amount of depth at running back. I hope that this holds, especially where Caleb Jackson is concerned. I learned my lesson a little bit last year because we discounted John Emery. Or let me not speak for anybody else. I discounted John Emery. I didn't think that he would be much of a factor in the run game last year. And had he not been hurt, the USC game proved, you know what? He might have been a big factor had he not been hurt. I don't want to write Caleb Jackson off because he's been here for a while now, and I think a veteran presence could help. But for another reason, he's by far, by a good 20 pounds or more, the biggest back that they would have on next year's roster. The rest of the backs are smaller. I would like to have that one big, heavy-duty thumper on the roster. So I'm hoping for a good spring out of Caleb Jackson. We all know that there's a late transfer period. I hope he sticks around because I think that there's going to be a role for him. Chris Hilton, Aaron Anderson, Xavier Thomas, who we all talked about, and Trey Green, wherever you want to put him right now. It's 4 receivers. Add to that Nick Anderson from Oklahoma, who's proven at that level at least that he could be pretty close to a number 1 receiver. Brown, who you mentioned from Kentucky, who's also a special teams monster. Destin Hill, I don't know what they get. He's been out of the game for a while. It's sort of a bonus pick at this point. And then 2 very highly recruited freshmen out of New Orleans, Teron Francis and Phillip Wright from Carr and Destrehan. You're losing Lacey and Daniels, but you're bringing in 5 guys. Now, listen, I'm going to go through this depth chart a little bit. I don't do this very often, but I'm going to do this today after the game. I'm not going to tell you that all these guys are going to work out. I'm not going to tell you that all of these guys are going to stay healthy and have big years. But I'm telling you from a standpoint of just look at the roster on paper, that's pretty thick. I mean, that's 10 guys that, man, look, if 6 of them work out, you're going to be chock-a-block. Tight end remains a little bit of a concern because I don't know if Trey Green, this is what he's going to be moving forward or if he's going to be split out, but I know he's a matchup problem. I know he got better. I know the Trey Green I saw in the Baylor game was better than the Trey Green I saw in September. That's encouraging. To hear Kelly talk about, his work ethic, that's encouraging. You add to that Bauer Sharp, who's a full-time starter at Oklahoma this past year. J.D. LaFleur, the legacy tight end from Sulphur, who is 6'6", 245 pounds. Probably not ready to play, but that's pretty good. Wouldn't rule out them adding another tight end in the transfer portal before we get to spring. So that's pretty good. This starting offensive line, Tyree Adams at left tackle. To my knowledge, I don't think he took a snap at left tackle this year. If he did late when Will Campbell got out of one of these games, I apologize, but I don't think he did. Paul Mubenga, who I thought got better as the month of November went on. Still not a finished product by any means, but I was encouraged there. DJ Chester at center, I thought played pretty well in this game. Go back and look at the film again, but he's going to have an opportunity maybe to move to guard in the spring. Bo Bordelon, I thought, held his own. Cohen Eccles in relief, I thought, did well. So, and of course, Frazier's going to be moving on. But that's, 4 or 5 guys there that you feel okay about. You're bringing in Braylon Moore, who's a 2-year starter at Virginia Tech. You're bringing in Josh Thompson, who was a starter at Northwestern. You've got 1 5-star recruit in Solomon Thomas. Listen, we used to never think about 5-star recruits coming in on the offensive line and playing, but that's kind of shifted with the transfer portal, right? Sometimes freshmen have to play. Will Campbell had to play 3 years ago. And on the other side, Emory Jones had to play. And those guys held their own. So maybe it'll be Thomas, maybe it'll be Carius Kern, who was also very highly recruited. But you've got 6 offensive linemen coming in addition to 4 of the 5 starters that were in this game, a couple of key reserves. And that's not even counting freshmen that are redshirted like Ori Williams and Ethan Callaway. By my count, you're going to go in the spring with 15 offensive linemen if they don't add another one. And I think they're going to add at least 1 more, according to Brian Kelly. I've seen LSU go into August with as few as 9 or 10 healthy offensive linemen before. That makes for nervous moments. When you got 15 or 16 to start, and a lot of them have some experience, that's pretty good. At defensive tackle, we get to the defensive side where you're losing more guys. McKinley and Bro are back. Both of them played a lot as freshmen. You're going to get Jacoby and Guillory back, so that's pretty good. Sadir Mitchell, the transfer from Texas.
When we started writing our thoughts down on paper, it opened up endless possibilities. Ideas could grow beyond the borders of the mind, and it changed the world. Somewhere along the way, we lost touch with paper. Distracted by devices made for every purpose except for thinking and focus. On edge, waiting for the next notification. But what if new technology didn't pull us away from paper, but brought us closer to it? Listen. That's not paper. It's the sound of the new Remarkable Paper Pro, rewriting the future. A paper tablet with a true color ink display, gentle reading light, and unheard of tactility. With digital features for taking notes, thinking, and organizing without any distractions. Paper is about to change the world again. Get your paper tablet at remarkable.com today.
This gigantic human being is 6'6", 350 pounds, and 4 freshman defensive tackles. 4. 2 of them in Zion Williams and Dylan Battle, who are anywhere between 325 and 340, and 2 smaller players in Walter Mathis and Brandon Brown, who are in the 290 range. You've got 7 defensive tackles. Look, man, I watched them go through the 2018 season with 2. You give me 7 guys. And, again, all of these guys are not going to pan out. They're not all going to be all-conference players. But I like the bodies that I got. At defensive end, they had to add a lot of players because, they only had Relaford coming back, and hang on with me a second on Harold Perkins. But you're bringing in Patrick Payton from Florida State. I thought Hunt had a great line on him. Basically, his stats are Barkevious Mingo's stats so far. Mingo was a pretty good player here. Zach Weeks is a recruit from Georgia. Jack Pyburn is a transfer from Florida who played a lot there. Jamiri Butler from Nebraska was a 2-year starter there. And then you got the rookie Damian Shanklin out of Indianapolis. That's 5 edge guys, not counting Harold Perkins. For the moment, I'm going to trust LSU to not play Perkins at, nose guard or something. And he's going to be another edge rusher. That's 6 guys. I watched them play this year with basically 3. If 4 of these guys work out, you got more depth than you had before. Linebacker, Whit Weeks, West Weeks, Devon Keys, Harold Perkins, if you will, okay? And Tyler Singleton, the redshirt freshman, is still there. That's 5 guys. You're going to lose Penn, but you're bringing in 4 recruits in addition to what you've got coming back. One of them, Charles Ross from Houston, is a very highly rated guy. Zach Weeks, the third of the Weeks brothers. Keelan Moses is in this recruiting class. By my count, if you count Perkins, it's 9 linebackers. Again, they played with 4 this year. Ashton Stamps, P.J. Woodland, the freshman Michael Turner at corner, but you're bringing in Mansour Delone, who's a 2-year starter at Virginia Tech. You're bringing in Jakeem Jackson, who was a starter at the beginning of the year at Florida before you started the season, got hurt after 2 games. DJ Pickett, who was the highest-rated player in the class, and Aiden Anding from Ruston, the other freshman, who was, I believe, the highest-rated corner in Louisiana. That's 7 guys that you go to spring with. If 3 of them work out, 4 of them work out, fantastic. Safety's a problem. You're bringing back Jordan Gilbert. I thought he played better in this game, but again, the rough year. Javian Toviano played safety in this game. Without having relooked at the film, a little bit shaky. Spears, a little bit shaky. But you're bringing in a couple of recruits in Jace Thomas and J.C. Giancouli, however you say it. They're going to go get a safety in the transfer portal. I am as confident as I can be that that's going to happen. Maybe 2. So there's some more help on the way to replace Sage Ryan and Major Burns. On paper, that's pretty good. What I just rattled off to you here is pretty good. It's not perfect, and it's going to need to be coached because how this all blends together, we don't know yet. But the last 2-3 years, maybe even more than that, we've spent a lot of time going, the roster ain't near where it needs to be. The talent level is not where it needs to be. The depth is not where it needs to be. The star players up at the top, not where they need to be. This roster that I just rattled off to you has got plenty of all of that. Doesn't mean that they're going to be in the national championship game next year. Doesn't mean they're going to win the Southeastern Conference. Doesn't mean anything other than I like where they are at the starting gate. So that's my dissertation on the state of LSU football, Max.
Yeah, doing a post-assessment of this season, I think you could say that maybe this wasn't a top 12 roster.
It wasn't.
And next year you can look at that and say it's probably, it's early, but it's fair to say they could have a top 12 roster next year. And we know the expectations here are going to be playoff or bust regardless of that situation. And maybe the schedule next year is a little bit more difficult than it was this year because you get some really difficult road games. But not to be a romantic, but, Nussmeier coming back in his second year, the last 2 that have come back in their second years that won bowl games as well, came in pretty good. And he's got a hell of a pass-catching unit, as you rattled off there. Hilton Anderson, Green, and Thomas coming back, the guys they're bringing back in. There's a lot of reasons for optimism. It's early, but you certainly look at that roster. I would remind you, you didn't really mention special teams. That's been a bit of a problem. It's been overlooked.
The kicker's back. They brought a punter in. The return specialists are okay.
They're good. The return specialists are good. I think it's fair to say.
You got to find a deep snapper.
We need the operation to go a little bit more smoothly. We were reminded of that a little bit in the bowl game, but certainly reasons for optimism when you really take that deep dive in the roster.
If they fixed all of the rest of this stuff and can't find a deep snapper, shame on them. Okay, they'll find somebody, I think, who can snap the football. We're brought to you by, true point. Okay, that's
it's been bad for 3 years.
It's been rough. It's been rough. We're brought to you by Louisiana Health and Injury Centers, helping you deal with pain. Dr. Michael Goff and his staff done a great job for our family over the years, helping them deal with back pain, neck pain, from myself, back pain, things that are keeping you from moving around the way you want to, restricting your motion, or they are causing you to maybe not get a good night's sleep. Let them use the exercises and techniques, the things that will get you to feeling better and target those problem areas to get you to feeling better. Airline Highway, Plank Road, Jefferson Highway near Drusilla, Dr. Michael Goff, Louisiana Health and Injury Centers. We'll take a break. Colucci time when we come. Are they playing hockey today? I forgot to look. We'll get a little stuff from him, though, but also the Sugar Bowl and the upcoming final week of the NFL. That's next here from Jolie Pearl and Town Square Pizza, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
It's time. It's now Colucci time. Dwayne Colucci is back to give his best picks on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
And we return here at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar and Town Square Pizza. Colucci, Happy New Year. How are you, sir?
Happy New Year, Charlie. How you been? All my thoughts and prayers to everybody down, in Louisiana area and New Orleans, and especially here in Las Vegas. I wanted to touch upon that. Some catastrophic events and some really bull crap, Charlie, when it comes to how our country is currently. And just want to send thoughts and prayers, especially to New Orleans and Las Vegas.
I appreciate that, Colucci, and to you guys, the explosion outside of the Trump Hotel yesterday, also, in addition to the things that happened here. We talked about it at the top of the show, and I appreciate your statements here. Targeting, I'm going to call it a controversial rule since it came in. I'll be honest with you, Dwayne, I've never liked the ejection part of this. I'm fine with, player safety and all that stuff and things that should be called penalties, but I never was a favor of the ejection part of the rule. But I do know that I've spent a lot of time, as you have, watching targeting calls be reviewed since that rule came into place. And I've seen some really ticky-tack stuff result in player ejections, not the least of which was Devin White here years ago in a game before LSU played Alabama. So when Arizona State and Texas are reviewing a play that to me looked like the absolute poster event for targeting, and decided, nope, that's not targeting at all, I kind of threw my hands up with the targeting rule once again. How did you see the play that could have prolonged an Arizona State drive with a little over a minute to go in regulation of that tie game?
Yeah, Charlie, I kind of thought it was targeting. I mean, when you have replay involved and you're still not, getting the calls right, that's where we start to get really frustrated. And it happens throughout it's not just college football on the center stage, but in the NFL, week in and week out, you just have such poor calls, and it's still human judgment making the decision on if they feel it's a targeting call or not. And this definitely, affected the outcome, in my opinion, of this game. It definitely would have prolonged the drive, as you touched upon. And it's just so disappointing that we can't get it right at this stage. And there's so many different now angles, overhead views, and especially in these bowl games and these NFL playoff games. And like you said, though, Charlie, sometimes quarterback is tucking his head down, guy is in full flight already with his body extended, and the helmet does happen to hit the crown of the helmet. I don't feel that players at this stage should be ejected for this. You look at things that happened in the old days with the Bears and Butkus and, Mike Singletary, Ronnie Lott. These guys hit, with the full crown of the helmet down at almost all times. And it was a different era, don't get me wrong, but I think suspensions and removal of key players from games definitely is not the way to go. I agree with you with that. But I thought that play was targeting, and I'm just disappointed that you keep reviewing and you'll have 95% perceiving that it is a target, yet the 5% outweighs the 95% in the decision-making process. So, it definitely – go ahead, John.
No, Arizona State would have, and I agree with what you're saying, Arizona State would have had a first down in Texas territory with just over a minute to go. Their odds of winning the game, Max, I'm not great at this. Their odds of winning the game, had that call been made, they got to be somewhere in the 60, maybe 70% range to win
70%,
that. To win the game at that point. We don't know if the kid's going to make the kick or if they would have scored a touchdown or whatever. But where was Texas has done this now. They did it against Arkansas. They let them hang around. They did it against A&M. They let them hang around. Not so much Georgia, because I think Georgia's better than Texas, but they let Clemson hang around. And they let Arizona State hang around long enough that, listen, Arizona State on the yardstick was fine. They just couldn't convert in the red area. But right there, I'm saying, you know what I was thinking? Texas kind of deserves this. They have not put a game away that was there for them to put away, and Arizona State was going to get a break, and then they didn't get the break.
Yeah, obviously. And, definitely Arizona State came to play. They were a solid team all year, Charlie. I was touting them, few key players missing. They might have won this game, to be honest with you.
They dominated the yardstick. They dominate the yardstick, and the Scatterboo was great.
Yeah, unbelievable. And, a lot of pressure on him, too, as we spoke of, because of the injury. So Scatterboo was great. They definitely controlled the tempo of the game, and Texas does have problems putting teams away, but, the Longhorns are still there. It's amazing that they are able to move on despite these inadequacies. They get the luck of that call, and also they are now moving on in the playoffs. We currently have Ohio State -6 against Texas, 53.5 at the Rampart and South Point. So, I anticipate a lot of Ohio State money after that unbelievable performance last night, despite the game being in Texas at the Cotton Bowl. So, Ohio State is really geared up now. And like you said, Charlie, Texas is having some trouble putting teams away. People look at Arizona State as not such a marquee college or a marquee matchup, but I wouldn't buy much into that. I think Arizona State was battle-tested and ready to go, and that's why Texas wasn't able to, win in the flashy fashion that people thought or the Texas Packers thought.
Colucci, let me ask you this. It's 6 now. A two-part question. Number one, where did you open the game at? And if you had to do a look-ahead line before the Texas-Arizona State game and before the Ohio State-Oregon game to an Ohio State-Texas matchup, what would it have been?
Well, we opened the game at 6. Looking ahead,
y'all opened at 6, okay.
Yeah, we're taking steady money, on both sides currently. Nothing overwhelming as of yet. We haven't had the line up but 24 hours. So, I definitely felt that looking ahead, I probably would have made it in the same fashion, in the same area, maybe 5. Ohio State really looks like the real deal at this stage of the game. And, Texas, the two-pronged quarterback attack. But like you said, you do have better teams out there, especially SEC teams. And like you said, I think Georgia's a better team, too. I'm not going to put any qualms on it. I think they're a better team than Texas, and I think they proved that this year. So, I don't know if Texas's life and death style is going to get them past Ohio State here. But they do have a home crowd, basically. And, I know Ohio State fans travel well, but Texas is going to be overwhelmingly the side of the crowd and the audience in the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah, I asked the question because I was wondering how many opinions were changed watching those two performances yesterday, because Ohio State was dominant against Oregon, and I'm also looking, and you can tell me what you got there at the South Point and the Rampart, on Ohio State to win the national championship, but they're a pretty healthy choice in the online markets to win the whole thing at this point.
Yeah, we took that down currently because we're waiting for the final game now. But, yeah, they're definitely across the board a market favorite. And that's why I said, even looking ahead, if they did defeat Oregon, you knew they were going to be in the 5-6 point range, Charlie. That's the whole key, because if you beat Oregon, you're beating a much more polished opponent in the public's eye. So us as bookmakers, we have to create a line all based off of that. And being that it was such dominating passion, especially the first half, we definitely moved the meter up a little and definitely knew Ohio State was going to be close to a touchdown favorite in this game.
All right, the game this afternoon now, and it looked like yesterday, before they postponed the game, that this line had swung from Georgia being a short favorite to Georgia being a small underdog, about a point. You could tell me what your action did yesterday there, but as we sit here right now, it's a pick it 1 point.
1 point either way.
Yeah, so you tell me your thoughts on Notre Dame and Georgia today.
Yeah, Notre Dame is playing really well, and we know that quarterback is not playing for Georgia, so we know that as well. Georgia still is an SEC battle-tested team. Notre Dame, since that horrible loss early in the season, has been monstrous, 11-1 overall. We're sitting currently at 1. Notre Dame is the favorite at the Rampart and the South Point, total of 46. And keep in mind, if you did make wagers prior to the cancellation at the Rampart and South Point, unfortunately, you do have to come and rebet the game. We have a rule where you do have to have that game played on the date of the event. So you do have to come back and purchase parlays, teasers, go down, a team. Obviously, if you have a 14 parlay, it is now a 3-team parlay as this game becomes a wash and a refund. So keep that in mind. We also had bold jackpot cards, Charlie, where that game we will treat as a win for each team. So that's how we will grade that jackpot card. But now we had to reset the market for the Rampart and South Point, and currently Notre Dame is 1. Total is 45 in this big matchup.
All right, let me look ahead to the NFL here for a second, because a Week 18, that means nothing for a lot of teams, but does mean quite a bit for a few teams. So you got to look across the board where guys are going to be resting, people like Saquon Barkley and Matt Stafford and most of the Chiefs, and you got to really do your homework. But there are a couple of games that really stand out. Of course, Vikings Lions is the top one. You can kind of tell me where the action is heading into Week 18 in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely, Charlie. We have on Week 18 on Saturday, we have 2 games. So we're seeing a lot of action currently on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Game opened at 3, now down to 1.5. Cincinnati is the favorite. So a lot of people taking the dog, and the game really means a lot to Cincinnati here. So, kind of shocked with that outcome. Like you said, you have the big matchup, one of the biggest matchups of the year that we opened, Lions at 3 on the key number. It has been bet down to 2.5. Sam Darnold has just looked so good. And I think the Vikings actually have a chance, despite Detroit's dominance or perceived dominance throughout the NFC and this season. So Jared Goff is definitely going to have to come up with a huge performance. Like I said, we opened that game at 3, and now it is down to 2.5. We have a few other games that the market is swaying a little. The Raiders have been popular at the market. I don't know why. I don't know why they're winning games now, Charlie. But a lot of people are looking to kill them out here just because they're losing draft status. There's definitely, Washington, they want to keep winning. We opened that game at 3.5 against my Cowboys. It's up to 4.5, and rightfully so. Dallas just looked so bad last week, and CD is shut down for the season. We know that. That's definitely a big game. Seahawks and Rams. We opened that game at 3, now 6, because of possibly, a lot of these players sitting out, even though the game is in Los Angeles. Seattle is now a 6-point favorite. You're going to see a lot of these big line moves as we get the status of key players heading into these matchups, Charlie.
We're going to get a Jimmy G sighting with the Rams this weekend. Yeah. Hey, real quick, Kluch, we got about a minute. Anything on the ice tonight that you like?
Yeah, definitely. The Rangers' woes continue. I'm going to take the Boston Bruins tonight. It's looking like the Bruins are minus 115 at the Rampart South Point. Some shops you can get 110 on each side. So looking at the Boston Bruins, they're playing, very well right now, 20-15. They've turned everything around, whereas the Rangers continue to plummet 16-19. They're actually, with all that talent now, behind my Montreal Canadiens, and they are not in the playoff picture. So that is very shocking. Also, we're going to take a shot tonight with the Washington Capitals at home, even though Charlie Lindgren is going to be between the pipes against fan favorite in Las Vegas, Marc-Andre Fleury, laying 160 in that game. So 2 games right there. We're looking at the Capitals and the Bruins, their early matchups, Charlie. Let's get some New Year's money and start the year right.
Colucci, we always appreciate it. God bless. Have a good weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yes, God bless, and prayers to everybody out there in Louisiana. Happy New Year. Love all you guys. It's like my second family. Charlie, Happy New Year to you and your family as well.
Thank you, Colucci. We appreciate it. We'll take a break here at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar and Town Square Pizza live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
At lunch with Ott and Hanny from Jolie Pearl downtown, facing Town Square on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
There's very few things in sports that I care about less than the Pro Bowl, but engage me for a minute and a half here, okay? The Pro Bowl, which they haven't played in a while, they still announce Pro Bowl rosters, right? And they do this flag football thing and this whatever deal the Mannings do. I haven't watched it. It's a cash grab. I don't really care about it. Here's what I do care about, okay? That they decide, whoever votes on this, who the best players are in the league at the end of the year. There are 44 players on the NFC squad. 0 from the New Orleans Saints. Now, NFL.com also does this thing where they do snubs. You know, this is all-star games. They always do. Well, who should have been on there? Brian Thomas, probably the biggest snub of all of them as far as I'm concerned. Year he had in Jacksonville, somehow he didn't make the AFC roster. And they're not going to play these games, and I wouldn't care if they were. I do care that the Saints don't have one of the best 44 players in the NFC. They did 10 snubs through the first 2 through both of the rosters, the AFC and the NFC. They had 0 snubs, okay? So not only is there not a player from the Saints that's in the top 44, they're not even in the next 10 of guys that should have made the team. If that's not an indictment on your general manager's ability to bring in talent, how many more times you got to be told, Miss Gail? I'm sorry. How many more examples do you need? Hour number 2, straight ahead at Jolie Pearl and Town Square Pizza, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Jolie Pearl downtown, facing Town Square on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
And we return here at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar. The Christmas decorations getting ready to come down, but a couple more opportunities to come down here. Snap a pic if you're downtown for lunch today, and then we move right into Mardi Gras season here. But we're here next to Town Square Pizza. You get the delicious hot square pizza. Make it right in front of you. But most importantly, if you're working downtown, got a limited amount of time for lunch. You can get in, get the delicious Town Square Pizza in a hurry. They are conscious of your time. Very, very generous portions here. So you can get it made to your specifications. You're probably going to have enough to take a little bit home with you. That's at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar and Town Square Pizza, downtown Baton Rouge. Charles Hanniger, Max Gotro with you. Max, let's go back to the quarterfinal on New Year's Eve. Penn State got out to a 17-7 halftime lead. I don't want to say they hung on in the second half, but boy, the opportunities that Boise State had to really climb in and put some pressure. I kind of feel a little bit about Penn State the way I felt mostly about Texas right up until the time where Arizona State tied the game. I don't feel like they've had that pressure put on them yet. And I thought SMU had opportunities to put the pressure on them and didn't, because Kevin Jennings had a rough game and threw 3 interceptions. And I thought Boise State had opportunities to put pressure on Penn State, but the quarterback, Maddox Madsen, threw 3 interceptions in the game. And it's why I'm sorry, Texas and Penn State, they've won plenty of games. They've beaten most of the teams that they're supposed to beat. But I just don't feel like they have had optimum pressure put on them, and it's why I like Ohio State. It's why if Georgia wins this game today and Gunnar Stockton is anything like what I think he can be, which is just adequate, okay, I'm going to like Georgia because those teams have had pressure put on them. And I watched this game the other night. Like, Boise, you're right there. Put them in a jam. Put some pressure on them. Make them make a play. And he throws it through. I guess defensively they made the plays because they made the interceptions. But I felt like there were all kind of opportunities for Boise to climb back in this game and apply some pressure, and they didn't.
Yeah, another game where Boise outgained Penn State on the box score. There were a lot of reasons that you look at it, and outside of turnovers, you think that Boise State should have been in the game, and they kind of were. Penn State, like you mentioned, was kind of in it a little bit with SMU, unless you look at the score. The problem, I think, specifically with Boise is so much of their offense is generated from Genty, and it's not just running the ball, it's the play-action stuff that helps Maddox Matson, who, look, outside of the interceptions, didn't have the worst game ever, but the problem is they get down 14-0, and that kind of changes the way that offense looks. Now you can't really run the ball exclusively. You can't set up the pass the same way, and that's really where this game was lost. Boise State's not a team that's set up to come back in this game, especially against a team like Penn State. But, yeah, I'm right there with you, Charlie. I don't see how Penn State comes away from these two games and you really feel like, man, Penn State is a national championship contender, unlike what I thought. Despite the score lines, they haven't looked all that impressive, to be honest.
And you got to look at where these interceptions came from. The first interception, they had gotten down to the Penn State 20-yard line. That's got to be a scoring opportunity. They missed 2 field goals in this game. The second one, they had gotten down to the 21-yard line. The third turnover, which we're calling the missed field goal a turnover, the third interception was in their own territory. And then the fourth interception was way down at the end. Penn State picked up the ball at the 18-yard line. So there's all these scoring opportunities, and I felt that same way about Arizona State yesterday. And as much as I would like to tackle the robot today and jump on him, they tried to kick 2 field goals and missed them. Texas missed some field goals yesterday. These are pressure kicks.
Arizona State.
Yeah, Arizona State missed some opportunities where they were down in the red zone. You move it down in between the 20s, and then you get down there. And if Jimmy were here, he would say it's putts and pressure putts, free throws and pressure free throws, and then there's plays, and then there's these plays in the red zone. I thought it was there for Boise to really – I'm not saying they would have won the game. I don't know that there was any point once Penn State got up 14-0 where I'm like, yeah, Boise's going to win this game. But I'll be honest with you, watching yesterday's game, until they actually got it tied, I didn't think that Arizona State was going to win the game. They were down 16 points. It's 2 touchdowns, 2 two-point conversions. At some point, you got to catch a little bit of a break to get back in a game 16 points when you're down that much with less than 10 minutes to go. And Arizona State did apply the pressure. Texas ended up winning the game. I thought it was there for Boise State to apply the pressure.
Well, so much of this playoff, there's not this elite team. Maybe Ohio State can be. We saw a glimpse of that maybe yesterday against Oregon. But there's a whole lot. There was a stat that 2019 LSU would be like a 2-touchdown favorite over any of these teams.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of question marks on all these teams, and a lot of it is a little bit narrative-based, right? Penn State, we sort of think, well, James Franklin in big games, and they haven't really been tested at that level. So you question, can they really get it done? Can Penn State really be the team that finishes as a national champion? Ohio State has that same sort of question. Ryan Day, they've got a great team. They spent so much on the roster, but do you trust Ryan Day?
I trust him a lot more than I did a month ago.
He made a little accident in his pants in that Michigan game, but he doesn't have Michigan, I guess, in this playoff. And Georgia, I guess you have a backup quarterback. You have to ask that question. Notre Dame, are they really that team? There's just so many teams in this whole thing. Texas, I mean, Sarkisian didn't exactly close that game with the strongest of cases as to why they should win the national title. There's just somebody's going to have to win this. And Oregon, I thought sort of by default they might be the team. They got blown out yesterday. So there's a whole lot of questions. And at the end of this, somebody's going to have to be the champion. And I guess right now Ohio State's best position.
They're even money to win this. So if you think anybody other than Ohio, I mean, the next best choice is Texas at plus 350. And Penn State is plus 450. The two teams that are playing in the game this afternoon are plus 7 and 8. Georgia's 7 and Notre Dame's 8.
If you like one of those teams,
if you like anybody besides Ohio State, please
jump
in now.
If you have a position on the game today, I would bet one of them. I think they have quite a chance, Notre Dame or Georgia, when they match up against probably Ohio State in the national title game. I think there's a real case. If Georgia's able to get through Notre Dame and they show you something offensively, we'll see what Gunnar Stockton looks like with some time
That's
to
the whole
prepare.
thing, right? How can I have a strong – I like Georgia to win the game today because I think they're better up front than Notre Dame. I think that defensively in particular – they're significantly better than Notre Dame up front, and Notre Dame losing one of their key defensive linemen is certainly, I think, a big deal. But I don't know if Gunnar Stockton – look, maybe he's this year's Cordell Jones, this guy that comes off the bench who nobody's ever heard of and wins a national championship. I don't know. He certainly looks nothing physically like Jones did, but what I'm saying is maybe he can be that guy that comes from out of nowhere. Nobody, myself included, could have told you who Gunnar Stockton was outside of the most diehard of Georgia fans. The day we sat in the Beau Rivage, we were waiting for the kickoff. If you'd have come to me and said, Hanny, $100,000 check right here, name Georgia's backup quarterback. Me, who does this for a living, would have went, you're going to have to keep your check. I didn't know who he was. Still don't know much about him. I mean, I've read. And I've got enough confidence in him that I think they can win the game today. Can he go beat Ohio State? I don't know.
And look, the second
half.
Get
back to me at 7 o'clock tonight. I'll have another opinion.
The second half of the SEC championship, it's not like they asked him to do a whole lot.
Not only did they not ask him, they kept him out of harm's way.
And yet, despite that, I think because of history in the back of our mind, we trust Georgia a little bit more because they've been there in these moments. But this is not the same Georgia team. We've seen it all year. The defense isn't the same. Even with Carson Beck, this team had a major question mark. So it's kind of who's the survivor. It feels like an episode of Survivor. It's not. Nobody feels like a shoe-in at this point. Nobody feels the most deserving, but somebody's going to have to win this thing.
Well, if Will Howard plays the way
No
he
doubt.
has played the last 2 weeks, Ohio State is the best team against Michigan. If they just get wins above replacement, right? If we get wins above replacement of 0 from Will Howard in the Michigan game, don't they win? I mean, he played badly.
Well, that
his play calling
wasn't
his
too, yeah.
game planning did not help him at all.
I think it's so weird. Ohio State, if you look at their resume and you take out that game against Michigan, it looks pretty damn good, right? I mean, Michigan was the setup. This is the problem for me. It's probably the most perplexing game, despite their struggles against Michigan over the years. We've seen it with 2019 LSU, the year after getting beaten 7 overtimes by A&M. They had a point to prove, and they blew the doors off of A&M when they could. They didn't have to. There were some sharp people that were saying, I think it was like a 13.5-point spread that A&M could hang around in that game because LSU might be looking ahead. LSU made a point to blow out A&M in that game. The very next year, LSU had beaten Alabama the year before. Bama blew the doors off LSU, and we all knew it was coming, right? It felt like this was Ohio State's moment to kind of stuff Michigan in a locker and say, this is back to where you should be. And they lost the game outright. That's what was so perplexing about that, because a loss by 1 point at Oregon, the bettors will look at that and say, you went on the road where you're essentially giving up 3.5 points for home field advantage, and you lost by 1. Like, that's not a bad result. The rest of their season, they've shown you promises. I like Will Howard a lot, probably much better than most. But it's so tough to get that Michigan game out of your brain.
Of all of the players left in this tournament, is there anybody that terrifies you more than Jeremiah Smith? Not for me. No. And there's some really good players left in this tournament, but there's nobody that scares me as much as that guy does. We said this back in September. I love Ryan Williams at Alabama. I think he's a phenomenal talent, and I think he's going to be a great player for Alabama the rest of his career in college, and I think he's going to be a great pro. And I like Smith better, okay? He's about 20 pounds heavier, maybe 25 pounds heavier. He's a little bit tall. He's built more, like a big NFL receiver. And I say that with all the respect in the world for Williams, who I love, okay? Smith is terrifying to try to cover, okay? You want to talk about the one guy who can just knock you out of the game by himself almost, and he's it. So if you've got the best roster left in the tournament, which I think they do, and you've got the best player in the tournament, offensive player at least for sure, which I think that they do. There's nobody that scares me as much as him. I think he is a game changer. If I got the quarterback playing well, and he's playing the last 2 games, he's playing way better than well, then that's why Ohio State is the favorite by the margin that they are and probably deserve to be. Forget it. Don't look at the seeding. I know we don't do that on this show, but if you're looking at they're the 8th seed, how can they be trust me, the best looking right now. Worthy favorite, in my opinion.
We're saying these teams look a little weaker this year, but I will say I think we got to back off the quarterbacks a little bit. Will Howard's gotten some criticism. Certainly the way they ended the Oregon game was a blunder. But he can move the football. The same thing for Quinn Ewers. I mean, Quinn Ewers had a good game yesterday. It might not have been the prettiest game ever. There were some mistakes mixed in, but I thought a lot of it was them backing off the gas. I mean, he made the plays that mattered. They were down at their last play of their season, and ultimately he gets the job done. So, I mean, even Drew Aller had some good throws despite not having the best performance. So these quarterbacks, they're not the best ever, but they're certainly adequate, and I think Will Howard is maybe the best quarterback at this point left in the playoff.
Best quarterback left, Will Howard. He's not the most talented quarterback left in it. He's probably playing the best. Aller made some really nice throw. The touchdown in the back of the end zone was a really nice throw. That's an NFL throw. That's a high level throw. But
nice, the rushing touchdown when they needed it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you could certainly throw Riley Leonard. I think he kind of gets forgotten about in this whole discussion. But
he does, and he certainly played well, especially the back half of this season. I'm rolling with Ohio State for now, and I took my lumps, on this, this playoff so far. Backing dogs, and shut up. I have been converted over to I'm going to ride the favorite with Ohio State. That's not saying I'm going to lay money down on them at even money to win the thing, but do they look like the best team? Yes. Did I think that they had the best roster coming into the tournament? They were 1 or 1A, okay? And now if the quarterback's playing well, I can see that. But I'm dying to see Gunnar Stockton today. I'm really anxious to watch and see what kind of response he has. Again, I know high school doesn't matter, but we're not talking about some bench warmer here. We're not talking about somebody who was an afterthought in recruiting and he just happened to hang around. This kid was recruited by everybody. He was offered by Alabama. He was offered by Florida. He was offered by LSU. He was offered by Oregon. He set records in the state of Georgia, broke records that were held by Deshaun Watson, were held by Trevor Lawrence. So in high school, this guy was, every bit. Now, he's not the physical presence of a Lawrence or something like that. But he's played plenty football. I don't know what he does today, but I'm very anxious to watch.
And playing another team that, once again, if you take one game out of their resume, Notre Dame looks pretty damn impressive. But they lost in Northern Illinois. I mean, what can you say?
Can I mention before we go to the next segment another team that if you take one game out of their resume, it greatly changes how you feel about that team? Anybody you can think of right out of hand? Anybody that's, I don't know, also in the Southeastern Conference? Anybody that maybe changed coaches this year? Anybody who's got an awful lot of reputation and not nearly as much to back it up? Let me think on that during the break here. Might
Darth Vader-esque?
Maybe just a little bit on that. So we'll get to that when we return here at Jolie Pearl Oyster Bar and Town Square Pizza live at lunch 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Jolie Pearl downtown, facing Town Square on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
And we're brought to you by Home Bank, Louisiana-based since 1908. Your personal and business banking solutions. Check out with a local banker to help you get to your financial goals here as we begin 2025 with long and short-term CDs and low minimum balances to kind of get you started. Terrific opportunity to stack up some returns here. Local bankers in the Baton Rouge locations at Corporate, Sherwood Forest, Longform Village, and Bluebonnet. Also locations at Home Bank in Acadiana, New Orleans, the North Shore, Natchez, and Houston. Visit home24bank.com for more information. Home Bank, member FDIC. I suspect that our colleague at 3 o'clock will have some thoughts on the Alabama loss to Michigan. I'll leave the theatrics to him, although I must confess I've been enjoying the hell out of them when they've done. But yesterday in the ReliaQuest Bowl, the game was that 2 days ago? It was 2 days ago. Excuse me. Michigan beat Alabama 19-13. Max, we were watching this game together. We were doing a show, and Alabama driving rain for a short period of time. And Alabama just goes to pieces. They're just handing the ball over, handing the ball over, handing the ball over. Michigan's taking the ball, not really doing anything with it, just kind of taking the ball where it is and kicking field goals. Find themselves up 16-0. And then after the first quarter, the sun came out. Alabama started to move the ball a little bit. They got within 16-10 at the break, and I thought, well, I think you did too.
Absolutely.
All right. You know, it's kind of flukish at the beginning of the game with the turnovers. Milroe was just absolutely out of sorts. Alabama will come back, and they'll win the second half of this game, and they'll win the game. It won't be impressive, and they'll jump all over the board, but they'll come back and win this game. They don't score a touchdown in the second half, and Michigan ends up winning this game. Michigan, for bad as this season was for them, and it's tough to come off the national championship year when you lose as many people and, of course, the coaching staff the way they did. But they can say, hey, we finished up our season beating Ohio State and Alabama. That's something that's momentum going into the offseason for that group. By the way, Underwood practiced with the team, but I don't want to get to him. You thought, as I did, that Alabama would come back and take control of this game. They didn't in the second half. So what's your assessment of Alabama right now? Because I certainly got some thoughts.
Yeah, it's wow. It's you mentioned take that game away. Speaking of the Georgia game.
Okay, you beat Georgia. Beating Georgia is an accomplishment. Georgia is very good. Georgia is still here on January 2nd playing football. They may play all the way through they may win the national championship. Beating Georgia is significant. What else you got?
It's a team that lost to Vanderbilt. Look, they were down 16-0 in the first quarter. There were some, obviously, you mentioned the weather being a factor in this game. They were 16.5-point favorites when it started. Michigan started their first 4 or 5 drives on average at the opposing 21-yard line.
Yeah.
So to score 16 points wasn't even that impressive. That's why I thought.
You thought they were going to lose because of that.
Thought Michigan was going to lose. Bama scored 10 unanswered right before the half, and this is the direction this game is going. For their offense to lay an egg again in the second half, it really leaves you questioning what the status of Jalen Milroe is, who is a sort of projected day 2 pick in what is a pretty weak quarterback class. I think it's pretty widely considered. Whether you like Shador and Cam Ward or not, I mean, what's behind him? There's a real question. But DeBoer even had to answer a question in postgame about what did you think about making a change at quarterback in this game, and he ended up sticking with Milroe for the game. But if you're a Bama fan, like where do you see Milroe? Would you prefer to see him leave at this point? Because the body of work this year, I thought he would take a step up with his deep ball and whatnot, and the offense with DeBoer took a step back.
So if I got my timeline right after the season ended, there was a report out that said Milroe was going to come back, but that report was never confirmed. And so Milroe's been kind of vague about whether he's going to go pro or not. You get a wide variety of opinions on what his draft stock is. There's some people that believe he would go in the first round and other people that believe he would last into day 2. Just so you understand that I'm telling you what is being speculated about there and not what I believe. I would not take Jalen Milroe in the first round. I probably wouldn't take Jalen Milroe as a quarterback in the second round. I don't think he's a very good passer for the next level. I thought the same thing about Jalen Hurts. I was wrong there. Another Alabama quarterback. So it's not like he's got no future in the NFL. Maybe he'll be really good. But right now, he's way too inconsistent. You saw the same video I did online that his footwork is tipping off plays. Okay, I would think that the paid professionals on the staff at Alabama would have picked up on that beforehand instead of some guy on the internet. Be that as it may. You take the Georgia win out of Alabama's season, and it's pretty much any middle-of-the-road ReliaQuest Bowl kind of season. They haven't lost 4 games in a season since Saban's first year. The other ones, the South Carolina win at home. Okay, South Carolina turned out to be a pretty good team, that performance on Tuesday notwithstanding. But they won that game by 2 points. They were a 3-touchdown favorite in that game. They were also a 3-touchdown favorite in the game against Vanderbilt and lost. They were a 2-touchdown favorite against Oklahoma and lost. They beat Missouri when Brady Cook was out for most of that game and hobbled when he was playing in the game. Wisconsin wasn't any good this year. Their next best win after Georgia is in Baton Rouge, when LSU. That's of all the games I've seen Brian Kelly coach at LSU so far, that's the one that LSU looked the least prepared to play in. So whatever happened that week, I don't think that LSU is necessarily better than Alabama this year, but I didn't think they were that much worse. They really just spit the bit.
I don't want to take that away from Bama. That was their most complete performance.
You come in on the road. It's a tough place to play usually, and you win that game. No, that is a good win for them. But this was a middle-of-the-road LSU team. This was not a playoff team or anything that you go, wow, look at that year that LSU had. It's just kind of another year. They're just kind of there. And if you're asking questions about Jalen Milroe, who's got somewhere around, 20 career starts, a little over 20 career starts, if you're asking if you even want him back, the level of talent there, and Williams bailed him out, okay? Williams is in the same mold as all those guys they've had go in the first round over the years, but they don't have these guys stacked up six deep the way that they usually do.
Look, I'm not a Feinbaum listener, but I'm just picturing Bama fans right now and what they think about Milroe, because Garrett Nussmeier gets some of this pushback. And the expectations were even higher for Jalen Milroe this year than they were for Nussmeier in his first season. So I can only imagine what some of that fan base, which is known for being very rational, might think about
that's exactly what they are. It's rational. Yeah. Milroe is not the issue here. Whether Milroe comes back or not is not the question. It's DeBoer, okay? You have this bright young coach that was thrown into this meat grinder, okay? And I say he's a young coach. He's a veteran coach, okay? But yeah, he's younger than obviously Saban or some of the. You took this guy and you put him into something and you just ground him up. Because some of the decisions that they have made, the end of the first half against South Carolina is the one that is just glaring to me. Like, what are you doing? A coach that would have had probably plenty of success at Washington, would have finished up on the national championship game and come back and won, 8, 9, 10 games at Washington this year, something like that. And you just put him into this situation that is like, oh, my God, what happened to the – it reminds me of the quarterbacks that came out that were drafted high, and you put them out there behind no offensive line. It's like, man, that guy could have really had a good career. Except, he's David Carr. He's the David Carr coaches if this continues. You put a really good coach into a really good program, and you just set him on fire, basically. That's what happened to DeBoer this year. And it's going to be a long offseason for him. A long offseason. Feinbaum's really worth listening to the day after Alabama loses. That's prime entertainment.
And just looking ahead to their schedule next year, they go on the road to Georgia next year, on the road to South Carolina, who's headed in the right direction, that program. Their non-con games are at Florida State to open the season, which maybe they'll at least be better than they were this year. And
they would be hard-pressed to be worse.
They host Wisconsin as well. So, look, the schedule's not the easiest that Bama's ever faced.
Oh, by the way, Auburn should be better next year. Oklahoma should be better next year. LSU damn well better be better next year. No, it's going to be tough for Kalen DeBoer. But before he gets to play any of those games, man, he's got to come back and deal with this. All right, we'll take a break. We come back. We'll go out to Las Vegas. Kenny White will be with us. We'll get some picks on the upcoming games. That is next here at Jolie Pearl and Town Square Pizza, live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch with Ott and Hanny from Jolie Pearl downtown, facing Town Square on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
And welcome you back here at Jolie Pearl. Jimmy Ott is out today. Charles Handgriff, Max Gotro with you. We go out to Las Vegas, and Kenny White with us now as we get ready for another couple of bowl games here, and then, of course, the playoffs in the last week in the NFL. Kenny, good afternoon. How are you?
Hi. Hey, Hanny. I'm good. I'm sure you've been talking about it all morning there, but my heart and prayers go out to everyone for that Bourbon Street attack. So senseless, and again, prayers to anyone involved with this. And
we thank you for those comments. Yeah, we thank you for those comments, and we did lead off the show today addressing that. Okay, as we try to transition here, we got the Sugar Bowl this afternoon. Obviously, was supposed to be played yesterday. In this game, we've seen the line move. We've seen now Georgia as a small underdog. They have been a small favorite at different times during the betting. What's the latest line that you are seeing, and what's your thoughts on the Sugar Bowl?
Yeah, I'm Notre Dame a small favorite here in the market. I made Georgia 1.5, so we're crossing 0, can't have a tie. I just really don't have a lot of value to bet the side. I'm interested in the total as I took a touchdown off my totals that I came up with for all 4 college football playoff games in this round. The meaning of these games is so big for both teams, the coaches, pressure-packed situations. So I collected 1 under in the first game, but I should have won 2. I had Texas and Arizona State under, very unlucky loser there. I still made a small bet on the Oregon-Ohio State game over. It wouldn't have been as big if I didn't take the touchdown off, but taking a touchdown off my total here, I made it 43. I did go under 45.5 because I'm not sure if I took enough offensively off for Georgia. Without Carson Beck, I think that Georgia's going to be more conservative than they have been all year, and I think they'll be more methodical than they've been because that's the way Georgia played in the past. But with Carson Beck the last couple of years, Kirby Smart's team has played faster. I just don't see them playing faster, and I don't see them passing as much. They were throwing it about 57% of the time. I think you're going to see them run the ball more than half today. And Notre Dame loves to run. Notre Dame plays slow. So good defenses. I think both teams' defenses are better than their offense. And I think it'll be really a heavyweight title bout here today. I'm hoping it's a 20-17 final.
With what you saw yesterday and I guess the day before, Ohio State has surged to the top of the betting charts to win the national championship, and they are a 6-point favorite over Texas in the national semifinals. And what you saw yesterday, what were your big takeaways as we move towards the Final Four?
Yeah, it's amazing how this game is, and it's ups and downs and the ebb and flow of a game. But the 3 teams that had to bye this round all started slowly in their games, and the opponent got out fast. Arizona State was fortunate to come back at Sarkisian and let him stay in the game, but Ohio State just looked so good, obviously. And I go back to that Michigan game though. How did they lose to Michigan at home? Michigan is playing better. I can't make Ohio State 6 over Texas. Texas is very, very talented, and I feel like they will play better as an underdog because they know everyone's against them in this situation. They're doubting them in this situation. So, and Texas is playing with house money. They really shouldn't be here after allowing Arizona State back into the game. So I'll be on the Longhorns plus the points.
Kenny, there's actually 4 other bowl games besides what's going on in the playoffs that are still left on the board. Anything there catch your mind? It's okay if not, but sometimes in these other bowl games, these afterthought bowl games, there's some value. Anything that's caught your attention?
Well, today's game has, because I kind of looked back and, the bubble burst theory is real in college football. I've been following it for years, that when teams have these lofty goals and they lose a game that takes that lofty goal away, they'd have no motivation the next week. And we've seen that with a couple of teams. I really thought that motivation was for Miami. Now, they may have covered if Cam Ward played the entire game, but they didn't. And that was a team that thought they were playing for a national championship and went to Orlando instead of playing for a CP college football playoff. Colorado, I thought, was another team late in the season, thought they had a shot. They didn't play well, but number 1 was Alabama. That was a team that's their goal. Playing against Michigan was not what they thought they were going to be playing for, and they didn't even show up as a 17.5-point favorite. They lose straight up. Well, Mississippi is in that same boat. That's what they were playing for, a college football playoff. They're playing Duke. They know they're a big favorite. They're playing in Jacksonville. I don't really think they care. This line has gone up, and it went up from 15 to 17.5 because the quarterback transfer portal guys, Murphy and Loftus, both transferred. But Murphy was average this year, 60% passing, 7 yards a pass, 26 touchdowns, 12 INTs, so 2-to-1 ratio. His numbers are average for a college quarterback. I don't have a drop-off at quarterback. I can't see why this went up. The best player in this game that's not playing is Trey Harris from Mississippi, their best wide receiver. So I think Duke has more motivation trying to get their 10th win than Mississippi does just playing in a game. I really think Duke's in this game. I think Duke could win the game.
Kenny, I'm really curious about your thoughts about Week 18 in the NFL, and I say that citing your experience on the other side of the window making these lines. Some of these games mean something for one of the teams. A couple of these games mean something for both of the teams. Some of these games mean nothing for either of the teams, and we've got players that are being held out of these games all up and down the card. How much of this stuff, and how do you bake it into the lines, knowing what's on the line or not on the line for these NFL teams in Week 18?
Haney, I'm a power rating guy, and I start with the player power rating. So I love the situations where I can use those player power ratings to make adjustments to the team rating. And when we don't have Mahomes playing, I know what the adjustment is. When Stafford's not playing, I know what the adjustment is. So. You like to bet against. I think you like to bet against those teams in a must-win as well, because you're getting 2, 3, 3.5, 4 points more than you should be getting. And we see all the time there's really no tanking in the NFL. Maybe one in 100 you'll see a team tank, but the Giants had 2 wins. They beat Indianapolis. The Raiders had a shot at the first pick. They won their last 2 games. The poor teams, they continue to keep playing. The talent level isn't that great in the NFL. So I like to bet against those teams that must win because the pressure is on them more, and the other team's just playing football. So that's what I like to look for in the last week of the season. I'm always looking for dogs and unders. So if there's both teams are playing in a game that's very meaningful, you're going to find me probably on the under.
All right, so the 2 games I would ask about from that standpoint, Bengals Steelers, and of course Lions Vikings, which is the last game on Sunday night.
Yeah, well, I'm going to go under with the Pittsburgh game, obviously, because it's all Pittsburgh is why I'm going under. Their defense has just been so good, and they like to play methodical. They're going to try to run the football. They're very familiar with Cincinnati and Joe Burrow. They know what they're up against. They know what the game plan's going to be. So, you're going to get a great defensive game. Now, the other game, Minnesota and Detroit, I have a hard time going under there for the fact that Detroit's defense is so bad right now. They're still beat up injury-wise. The offense is one of the best in the game. This total is pretty high at 56, and it opened 51. I'm not going over. But I will wait and see if they have a slow start to this game, no scoring maybe the first quarter, and maybe jump in on the over then, because Minnesota has shown they can put up points in a hurry as well. But Detroit can score, and I think they will. They will score points in this game.
Kenny, your service has done an extensive amount of work on women's basketball, and you've given us some winners here in the pre-conference part. Now into conference play. SEC play starts tonight, including LSU's a monster favorite on the road against one of the few bad teams in this SEC in Arkansas. But anything that we should be looking out for tonight as women's hoops gets going in conference play?
Yeah, I did play a couple games tonight here in the SEC. I look at the lines here, what I made these. I did lay the points for LSU. I think they're a big win tonight over Arkansas as they start their first SEC game. I laid the points for Texas, -7.5. Not really enthused about that play just because they are such big rivals, and it is a road game for Texas, but Texas is the far better basketball team. I don't have my sheet in front of me of what I did bet, but I thought there was another game. Oh, I took Mississippi State. Kentucky's pretty big favorite in their game. I took the points with Mississippi State.
State is an underdog. I'm showing 1.5 with Kentucky. right now. That game is in Lexington. But the first round of SEC women's action getting going tonight, and the league is stacked again. Kenny, tell everybody about your service. You worked on, again, both sides of the window here and given out some really good advice to us. Tell everybody how they can get involved.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. Very, very easy, KennyWhiteSports.com. I like to give you the foundation, and that's the power ratings, and I do all the work for you. And I come up with the projection on every game, $25 a month, less than $1 a day, and you get my ratings for college basketball, college football, NFL, NBA, and NHL, and you get all those numbers. And the VIP club is $150 a month. It's a little bit more extensive, but you get the work done for you. You don't have to go over it. And you get plays from like 6-7 different handicappers that I only pay if they win. If they don't win, they don't get paid. So they're putting in their best plays in the VIP club.
Kenny, we appreciate it. Thanks for the nice words as well. We'll pass those along to Jimmy and his family, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Handy. Thanks for having me on the show.
We'll take a break here at Jolie Pearl in Town Square Pizza, coming to wrap up today's show live at lunch, 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Live at lunch.
Thibodeau's store and the Pierre Part store, your home improvement specialist. Listen, everybody's got a New Year's resolution. Maybe it's do this a little bit better, lose a little weight. Do so. How about if your home improvement is on your New Year's resolution list? A nagging project that you just haven't gotten done. You say, it's going to cost too much money, or I don't know how to do that. Let the experts help you out, because it's so much better than a YouTube video. If you've got minor repairs that you've just been nagging around, go to the experts at the Thibodeau store. Say, hey, listen, I want to do this. I think I can do it myself, but I'm not sure how to proceed. Let them walk you through step by step, whether you're pouring a little bit of concrete or you're making some repairs inside your home. They can take you through step by step. It's the kind of service that you're just not going to get from the big box stores. 900 St. Patrick Highway in Thibodeau. Stack up on your supplies, power tools, hand tools, plumbing supplies, electrical supplies, as well as a huge supply of grills, crawfish and jambalaya, pots, and custom-made cypress furniture, all at the Thibodeau store. Available online at ThibodeauStore.com. You can also have free delivery taken care of right there. 900 St. Patrick Highway in Thibodeau. The Thibodeau store.
Lunch with Ott and Hanny from Jolie Pearl downtown, facing Town Square on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Governor Jeff Landry said there will be an unprecedented law enforcement presence at the All-State Sugar Bowl later this afternoon. The Bourbon Street will be reopened approximately 30 minutes before the game. The Police Superintendent Ann Kirkpatrick says that the city will have as much security in place for the Sugar Bowl as they were planning to utilize for next month's Super Bowl. They will have local, federal, military police, hundreds of officers and staff lining the streets, lining Bourbon Street, lining the French Quarter. It will be, to use their word, unprecedented amount of security around Notre Dame and Georgia coming up here in a little over 2 hours as the investigation continues into the New Year's Day terror attacks on Bourbon Street. All right, Max, some thoughts about the football game. We're going to talk about the football game here for a second. Gunnar Stockton gets a start for Georgia, and Notre Dame is a 1-point favorite. What you think?
I'm rolling with Georgia. Not super confident about it, but we'll see a different package for Stockton than we saw in the second half. It's kind of hard to know what we're going to see, but Georgia people tend to think he's going to be pretty good for them. So Notre Dame, it's a hard resume to look at. They have one glaring loss. They blew out pretty much a lot of the other teams they played, but they didn't really play a whole lot of good teams. USC could have been in that game. We know that was kind of a bad beat.
The two interceptions, that were.
I'm going to just trust Georgia. They've been there, done that. I'll take Georgia.
If Carson Beck had played in the rest of we've spent a lot of time talking about the SEC championship game, but Beck wasn't good. That if he stays in the game, it was almost like Stockton was a stabilizing presence at the end of the first half. Now in the second half, they pull the reins back on him. But in the first half, it's a limited sample size, but looked okay to me against Texas, so I think he's got a better defense than Notre Dame.
Yeah, gave him a little boost. I think Beck, they still would have won that game, but it's impossible to know for sure. They certainly got a big boost in that first half when he came in initially, but that can sometimes happen with backup quarterbacks in the middle of the game. The defense kind of taken a little bit by surprise. They don't really know what to expect.
The other game, Duke and Ole Miss, it's one of those, man. It's an afterthought. After the playoffs, after New Year's Day, LSU's had a couple of these games where they've had to play a bowl game after New Year's Day, and it's the ultimate afterthought. They got everybody there. I don't know what that is going to mean once they get on the field, but they got everybody, just about everybody. Trey Harris, but they got just about everybody there to play in this game.
Jimmy's laying the points with Ole Miss in his preview this game. Sports Bettor's Paradise, wherever you get your podcast. He thinks that Lane Kiffin has a point to prove, and he'll run up the score. Duke, having played Miami, that was one of the teams that was sort of in the mix. I will say, if you're playing this game, I think alternates are a good idea, because Ole Miss, if they run up the score, they could pretty much name their score. I agree, but Kenny White makes a good point. All these teams that just got left out of the playoff, Miami losing outright, Bama losing outright. Don't forget South Carolina. That was a bit of a surprise. They were a 10-point favorite. They lose outright. So the teams that just got left out of the playoff so far, they haven't shown out very well. So I think there's a point to that argument where maybe Duke stays in this game very closely.
I'm no psychologist, but I know a little bit from having watched football over the years about body language of players. This might be one of the ones that you want to watch a series. Maybe two before the line gets completely knocked out of whack. There's a famous game, Jimmy and I've talked about this a lot of times with the Sun Bowl when Kiffin was at USC, and it was one of those freezing cold days in El Paso, and he comes out in this giant winter coat, the hood on and everything, and looked like he wanted to be anywhere but there. If you see anything that resembles that, it's not going to be cold there tonight, but anything that resembles that, you might want to go the other way. I want to wait. I think I want to watch it drive in this game. Thanks to the folks here at Jolie Pearl and Town Square Pizza for being our host today. Tomorrow, we will be at our normal Friday spot at Rufino's. For Max and Jordan, I'm Charles Hanniger saying thank you and good afternoon. Stay tuned for Hunt Palmer on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.